Hello all. Today we'll be discussing about the histology of liver, gallbladder and the pancreas. These are the accessory organs of the GIT which are aiding in the process of digestion through their secretions. Liver's hepatocytes are secreting bile which is drained by the hepatic duct, which is joined further by the duct arising from the gallbladder, that is the cystic duct, thereby forming the common bile duct, which again is joined by the main pancreatic duct arising from the pancreas to form the hepatopancreatic duct, which is opening in the small intestine, thereby discharging their secretions. Liver is the largest gland which develops as a derivative of the foregut, serving both endocrine as well as exocrine function. The main function of liver is to secrete bile, which helps in digestion of fat and also uptake and storage of nutrients and vitamins from the bloodstream occur through the liver. It helps in degradation of toxic substances and drugs. If we discuss about the macroscopic structure of the liver, it is surrounded by a thin connective tissue capsule known as the Glissen's capsule, thereby dividing the liver substance into several lobes like the right lobe, left lobe, caudate lobe and quadrate lobe. Each lobe again is further made up of numerous lobules. The connective tissue capsule further enters the liver at porta and extends between the liver lobes as interlobar septa and further dividing and branching to form the interlobular septa, demarcating the liver lobules. The classical liver lobule is hexagonal in shape with portal triad at its each angle. The portal triad runs in the interlobular connective tissue septa consisting of hepatic artery, portal vein, bile duct, lymphatics and nerves. In humans, the lobules are not well defined as the interlobular septa is poorly developed. On higher magnification, if we see that the interlobular septa is becoming triangular condensation in the portal area, forming the perivascular capsule and closing a small space known as portal canal containing many tubes. The largest lumen is of the portal vein. It is a patent tube. Second largest is the hepatic artery, and the bile duct is lined by locuboidal epithelium and lymphatics are lined by simple squamous epithelium. Now if we discuss about the microscopic organization of liver or the histology of liver, the liver structure is described under three headings: the connective tissue forming the stroma, the parenchyma and the sinusoids. As we all know, stroma is an extension of connective tissue which forms the basic framework for the gland. The connective tissue branches repeatedly and extensively and ultimately forms the interlobular septa, thereby dividing the parenchyma of liver into basic structural unit, that is the classical liver lobule. Also, the septas, they act as a passage for the neurovascular bundle as well as for the passage of bile duct. The next component of liver is the parenchyma, which is made up of cells known as hepatocytes or the liver cells, which are organized as plates forming the hepatic laminae. These hepatic laminae are separated by sinusoids. Now, if we appreciate that the substance of liver is made up of liver lobules or the hepatic lobules that are forming the structural and functional unit of the organ. The liver lobule is a hexagonal in shape and the connective tissue between the adjacent lobules is scanty. So, no well defined separation is seen between the adjacent lobules. So, we can see that the liver tissue of one lobule may merge with that of the adjacent lobule. Also, at the corners or the angles of hexagonal lobule, there are small triangular areas of connective tissue, the portal canal, which is containing the portal triad. Thus, around the periphery of each lobule, there are several portal triads. Also, if we see, the boundaries of hexagonal lobules are touching with each other. Each portal triad is forming a partial boundary for more than one lobule. That means they are in continuity, they are at the junction of the corresponding lobules. Also, the central vein lies in the center of each lobule. If we see in this diagram, the basic cell, that is the hepatocytes, are seen as radiating outwards as plates or sheets of cells known as hepatic lamina. They are radiating away from the central vein. The plates of hepatocyte that are 1 or 2 cell thick and many cell deep are formed, that are known as hepatic laminae. They resemble the brick wall made up of single layer of bricks. The hepatocyte here are representing the brick. So the hepatic laminae, they radiate outwards from the central vein. The central vein is forming the central axis. The hepatocytes are present in each laminae, and there are many such veins and radiating laminae. The arrangement of hepatocytes in liver parenchyma is such as the hepatocytes are separated by spaces known as the hepatic sinusoids. The spaces are also known as hepatic lacunae. The sinusoids are lined by a single layer of cells which are present in between the plates of hepatocytes. There are two types of cells which are found in the sinusoids, which are the simple squamous and the Kupffer cells. As we all know that the nutrients and liquids are absorbed in the intestine, it enters the liver through the hepatic portal vein. The absorbed product percolate through the liver capillaries known as the sinusoids, which are the tortuous dilated channels lined by a discontinuous layer of fenestrated endothelial cells. So, the sinusoids are lying in close contact with hepatocytes, that is, they are lying in between the hepatic laminae. They are thin, discontinuous fenestrated endothelium which is allowing the exchange of substances between the blood and the liver cells. The blood is flowing centripetally towards the central vein in the sinusoids. Also, in between the endothelium are present the Kupffer cells, which are the macrophages cell lining the sinusoids. The central vein, which is present in the center of a lobule, it is draining blood from the lobules into the hepatic vein. Radiating from the central vein are the hepatocytes, which are arranged as plates or laminae, maybe 1 to 2 cell thick and many cell deep. The plates anastomose to form a 3D network. Between the plates are present spaces known as hepatic sinusoids or the hepatic lacunae. Within the organ, the branches of hepatic artery and the portal vein, it supplies the liver sinusoids. Sinusoids drain into the hepatic venule, ultimately draining into the central vein. The central vein of adjacent lobule unite to form interlobular vein, draining ultimately into the hepatic vein and into the inferior vena cava. Now, after discussing the hepatic laminae and the sinusoids, we now discuss the perisinusoidal space of Dissay. As the name suggests, perisinusoidal means close to the sinusoids. So, perisinusoidal space of Dissay is a space between the sinusoids and the hepatocytes, and it is intralobular in position. It lies between the sinusoidal endothelium and the hepatocytes. It is a site of exchange of material between the blood and liver cells. Also, another type of cell that is known as Ito cells or the hepatic stellate cells are present in the perisinusoidal space of Disse. These are site of storage for hepatic vitamin A. In pathological condition, the Ito cells differentiate into myofibroblasts and they synthesize the collagen fibers. Another space associated with the liver side is the periportal space of Moll. It is a space between the wall that surrounds the portal tract, forming the limiting plate, and the portal tract itself. It is interlobular. It is a small space between the connective tissue stroma and the hepatocytes at the edges of portal canal. Again, it is interlobular, whereas space of Disse is intralobular. Periportal space of Moll is a site where lymph originates in the liver. Now, if we discuss the basic cell or the hepatocyte in detail, it is arranged as anastomosing cell plates of hepatocytes forming the hepatic lamina, as we already know. They are large polyhedral or polygonal cells in shape with the open face spherical nucleus, and many cells may be binucleated. The cytoplasm of hepatocyte contains numerous mitochondria, Golgi bodies, abundant rough endoplasmic reticulum and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, lysosome and vacuoles, thereby related with the high metabolic activity of liver cells. If we see in detail, each hepatocyte has three kind of specializations or the surfaces, which are the sinusoidal surfaces, the intercellular surfaces, and the canalicular surface. The sinusoidal surface, as the name suggests, the cell surface adjoining the sinusoids bear the microvilli that project into the space of Disse. Intercellular surface are the areas of cell surface where the adjacent hepatocytes are united to each other. And the canalicular surface is representing the area of hepatocyte cell membrane that bears longitudinal depressions that are opposed to similar depression on the neighboring hepatocytes, thereby forming the wall of bile canaliculus. Also, we can appreciate that irregular microvilli, it projects into the canaliculus. On either side of canaliculus, the cell membrane of adjoining cells are united by junctional complexes, thereby forming the blood-bile barrier, which is preventing the escape of bile into the intercellular space. The bile canaliculus is a small channel that occurs at the interface between an adjacent pair of liver cells in a plate. The wall of canaliculus are formed by the plasma membrane of opposite hepatocytes. Thus, the bile canaliculus is draining the bile which is produced by hepatocytes towards the bile duct at the periphery of lobule in portal tract. Also, we can appreciate that a polygonal hepatic cell is exposed on its 2 to 3 sides to the sinusoids, through which blood is flowing towards the central vein, and rest of the 2 or 3 sides are forming the bile canaliculi. So, if we summarize the hepatocyte, the cytoplasm of an hepatocyte shows irregular spaces which are occupied by glycogens, which is stained by periodic acid sieve. In between the adjoining liver cells are small gaps called bile canaliculi, and the hepatocytes secrete the bile into the canaliculi. And the canaliculi are merely spaces that are present between the plasma membrane of adjacent liver cells into which bile is secreted by liver cell is poured. The canaliculi are thus, they become connected with each other through delicate intralobular ductules, which in turn become continuous with larger interlobular ductules of portal tract and forming the terminal ductules or the canal of Fehring. Hence, the bile canaliculi functions in centrifugal direction. Also, we appreciate that interlobular ductules are lined by cuboidal epithelium, and in the walls of larger duct we can see the smooth muscle presence. The blood supply of liver is dual. Around 75% of the blood is through the portal vein, whereas the remaining 25% is supplied by the hepatic artery. Now we come back to the Kupffer cells. As we already know, they are the star-shaped cells which are present in the lining wall of hepatic sinusoids. Sinusoids are again the spaces in between the hepatic laminae. The Kupffer cells, they belong to mononuclear phagocyte system, thus act as a macrophage which clears the cellular debris or the microbes from the blood. The breakdown of damaged or old RBC reaching the liver from spleen is done by Kupffer cells. The RBC fragments and iron ferritin in the cytoplasm of Kupffer cells can be seen. And a word about the biliary circulation. The hepatocytes secrete bile which enter the bile canaliculi, which is nothing but spaces between the plasma membrane of adjacent liver cell. From the bile canaliculi, the bile enters the bile duct. From the intralobular ductules to larger interlobular ductules to the canal of Hering. Bile duct in the portal area, ultimately draining into the hepatic ducts. Bile flow is centrifugal or opposite to the blood flow in the sinusoids. So if we discuss the bile flow in detail, the plasma which oozes out of the sinusoids into the space of Dissay, resulting in exchange of material between the hepatocytes and the content of space. Bile is an excretory product of hepatocyte which is thrown into the canaliculi. The bile is transmitted through this network of bile canaliculi towards the portal tract where they open into ductules or the larger ducts. The small bile ductules are lined by cuboidal epithelium, whereas the larger bile ductules are lined by columnar epithelium. Now there is another aspect of the liver which are the lobules. Now three types of lobules are described, that is the classical hepatic lobule, the portal lobule and the hepatic acinus. It is the way in which the parenchyma of liver is divided into units. The classical lobule, as has been described, is hexagon in shape and it is according to the distribution of branches of portal vein and the hepatic artery. The center vein lies in the center of classic hepatic lobule into which the sinusoids drain, and the angle of classic hepatic lobules have the portal triad. Another way to divide the liver parenchyma is in the form of portal lobule. It is a triangular area of liver parenchyma which is around each portal triad that contains the adjoining part of three neighboring classical hepatic lobules. It is that part of parenchyma which takes bile into one bile ductule. Thereby they are triangular territory of liver tissue with portal triad at the center and the central veins at each corner of the triangle. So to define portal lobule again, it is a triangular territory of liver tissue which is having portal triad in the center and the central vein at each corner of triangle, thereby involving three adjoining classical liver lobules. The margins are formed by imaginary lines which are drawn between three central veins. It is also called the nutritional lobule of the liver, that is obtained by joining the central vein of three adjacent hepatic lobules. Next is the portal acinus or the hepatic acinus. It is most commonly accepted structural and functional lobule. It is a diamond-shaped smaller unit of liver tissue which is supplied by one hepatic arteriole which is running along the line of junction of two hepatic lobules. The two central veins, they lie at the end of each acinus. The portal acinus is the functional unit of liver. It is an elliptical shaped structure that includes portion of two neighboring classical lobules. The long axis of acinus is formed by joining of two central veins and short axis is formed by joining of adjacent portal triads. So in the center are terminal branches of hepatic arteriole and portal venule extending laterally from the portal triad, and the central vein lies at each pole of cross-sectional structure. So if we revise again the portal acinus, it is the area which is supplied by one terminal branch of hepatic arteriole, which is known as acinus. It is a diamond shaped smaller unit of liver tissue which is supplied by one hepatic arteriole. The hepatic arteriole is running along the line of junction of two hepatic lobules, the classical lobules. Two central veins, they are lying at the ends of each acinus. This portal acinus is the functional unit of liver. The blood supply of the deepest zone is the best, and the outermost zone of the portal acinus is worst. The short axis of hepatic acinus is by the terminal branches of portal triad that are lying along the borders between two classic lobules, and the long axis is a line joining the two central veins. Now in this slide we can appreciate the zones which are supplied by the hepatic arteriole. Zone 1, the blood supply is the best. Zone 3 has the worst blood supply. We can also appreciate the short axis which is formed by the line joining adjacent portal triads, and the long axis of acinus is formed by a line joining two central veins of the classical hepatic lobule. The zone 1 is closest to the short axis. Short axis again is formed by line joining the adjacent portal triads. It is closest to the blood supply, and the blood supply is the best. Zone 3 is the farthest from the short axis, but it is close to the central vein. And zone 2 has an intermediate blood supply. It lies between zone 1 and zone 3. So if we discuss the liver point of identification again, it is organized into hexagonal classic hepatic lobules that are separated by connective tissue septa known as interlobular connective tissue septa. The center of each hepatic lobule is the central vein. At the periphery of each lobule are the portal triads in the interlobular connective tissue septa, which contains the branches of portal vein, bile duct, hepatic artery forming the portal triad, also has the lymphatic nerve and the lymphatic vessels. The hepatocytes are polygonal and they are arranged in hepatic lobules as branching and anastomosing plates or cords of one cell thickness radiating from each central vein towards the periphery. The hepatocytes are forming the hepatic laminae. They are separated by sinusoids. Sinusoids are fenestrated and discontinuous epithelium. Also present in the sinusoids are Kupffer cells. The bile canaliculi course irregularly between the hepatocytes and drain into the interlobular bile ducts in the portal triad. Now we will be discussing the histology of gallbladder. Gallbladder is a blind muscular sac situated on the inferior surface of liver. The gallbladder stores and concentrates bile by absorbing its water, therefore serving as temporary storehouse of bile. The bile is discharged into the duodenum through cystic duct, which joins the common hepatic duct to form common bile duct when required as due to hormonal stimulation after a meal. If we functionally correlate the gallbladder, it collects, stores and concentrates and thereby releases bile for emulsification of fat. Bile itself is produced by hepatocytes. Now if we discuss about the histology of gallbladder, the wall of gallbladder is made up of inner mucous membrane, middle fibromuscular coat and outer serous layer that covers the gallbladder. The wall of gallbladder is consisting of following layers, which are the mucosa, the fibromuscular layer at the adventitia or the serosa. Now the mucosa is different from the rest of the GIT as the muscularis mucosae is absent in this tissue. The mucosa is consisting of epithelium and the lamina propria. The epithelium is the simple tall columnar epithelium with no goblet cells. The columnar cells have faintly stained eosinophilic cytoplasm and the nucleus is ovoid and it is located towards the base. The cells have microvilli on their apical surface, which is giving the striated appearance, involved in absorption of water from the stored bile. The underlying lamina propria is consisting of loose connective tissue which lacks the mucosal gland and the lymphatic vessels. The muscularis mucosae is absent and the submucosa is absent. So the next layer is the fibromuscular layer. Also the mucosa is showing the temporary irregular folds of varying size and shape when empty, thereby giving the surface honeycomb appearance. Sometimes deep mucosal diverticulae, they can extend into the muscularis externa and they are called as Rokitansky-Aschoff sinuses, which if present may contribute as risk factor for stone formation and infection. Next layer is the fibromuscular layer, which is again consisting of bundles of randomly oriented smooth muscle fibers and interlacing dense connective tissue which is rich in elastic fibers. Hence, the muscularis mucosae and the submucosa is missing in the wall of gallbladder. Instead, the fibromuscular layer consisting of bundles of smooth muscle fibers and dense irregular connective tissue rich in elastic fibers is present. The outermost layer is the adventitia or the serosa, which is the serosal layer has a lining of mesothelium or the peritoneum resting on the connective tissue. This layer also contains blood vessels, lymphatic network and the nerve plexus along with elastic fibers and adipose tissue. The fundus and lower surface of gallbladder is covered by serosa, whereas the upper surface which is attached to the fossa for gallbladder on the inferior surface of liver is covered by means of adventitia or the connective tissue. So, if we again summarize the point of identification of gallbladder, it is consisting of three layers. The wall is consisting of three layers, that is the mucosa, the fibromuscular layer and the adventitia or the serosa. Mucosa may show temporary irregular folds of varying size and shape. Between the mucosal folds, diverticula may be present. Mucosa is consisting of simple columnar epithelium and an underlying lamina propria which shows no glands. The fibromuscularis layer, as the name suggests, contains bundle of randomly oriented smooth muscle fibers and interlacing elastic fibers. Outermost thick layer of dense irregular connective tissue forms the serosa or the adventitia. Now we come to the histology of pancreas. As you all know, it is an accessory gland which is required for digestion, consisting of both exocrine as well as endocrine part. So it is a mixed gland. The exocrine part secretes the pancreatic juice, thereby helping in digestion of carbohydrate, proteins and fats, whereas the endocrine part of the pancreas, it secretes hormones which are regulating the carbohydrate metabolism. The main unit of endocrine part of the pancreas is inlet of Langerhans, which are the cluster of pale staining cells situated between the exocrine acini. The exocrine component of the pancreas is very similar to that of a salivary gland, example parotid gland. The secretory units of acini are tubuloacinar in shape. That means they may resemble bunch of grapes where the stem is comparable to the duct system and the grapes are comparable to the secretory acini. The secretory elements of exocrine pancreas are long and tubular, but they are described as acini as they appear rounded or oval in sections. So, the secretory unit of exocrine part are the acini, which are serous in nature. The acini are lined by pyramidal cells and they have a smaller lumen. Also, the intercalated duct begins within the acini. The acini shows all the features of serous secreting cells. They have a centrally placed round nucleus. The pyramidal cells show apical acidophilia and the basal basophilia, as the basal region is packed with rough endoplasmic reticulum. The spherical nucleus is located towards the basal part. Another type of cell lining the acini are the centroacinar cells, which are the cells that lie at the junction between the alveoli and the intercalated duct. They are cuboidal cells known as centroacinal cells. They appear so to be located near the center of acinus. Actually, these cells belong to the intercalated duct that have invaginated into the secretory elements. Thus, the name centroacinar cells. Now, if we come to the duct system of the exocrine part, we have the intercalated duct or the intralobular duct, which are adding the bicarbonate and water to the exocrine secretory part. Then we have the interlobular duct and the main pancreatic duct. The centroacinar cells are lying within the lumen of individual acini, thereby forming the intercalated or the intralobular duct, which are small in diameter and they are lined by simple squamous to very low cuboidal type of epithelium. It begins within the acinus. Ends of intercalated ducts are surrounded with the acinar cells or the pyramidal cells. The pale staining cells of intercalated duct, as already been discussed, the centroacinar cells, might be present within the lumen of individual acini. The intercalated duct are short and they open into the intralobular collecting duct lined by low cuboidal or columnar epithelium. Again, the intercalated duct joins to form interlobular duct, which are lined by simple columnar epithelium and lying in the connective tissue septa, and these join to form the main pancreatic duct, which is consisting of tall columnar cells. The endocrine component of the pancreas is in the form of rounded collection of cells that are embedded within the exocrine part. These collection of polyhedral cells are called the pancreatic inlet or the inlet of Langerhans. They are most numerous in the tail of pancreas. Each inlet is separated from the surrounding alveoli by a thin layer of connective tissue. The pancreatic inlets are lightly stained with HNE and they can be differentiated from acini, which are darkly stained. The islets are separated from the surrounding alveoli by a thin layer of reticular tissue, and the cells of islets are arranged as anastomosing plates or cords. The islets are richly supplied with blood through a dense capillary plexus, the fenestrated type of capillaries. Thereby, they pour their secretions directly into the blood capillary. The interval between the capillaries are occupied by the cells, which are arranged in groups or cords. Inlet of Langerhans contain 4 different kind of cells that can be distinguished by special stains but not well appreciated by H&E. 4 different type of cells are alpha or A cells, beta cells, delta, and 4th type is pancreatic polypeptide cells. The alpha cells are secreting the glucagon, thereby it raises the blood glucose level. The beta cells are involved in secretion of insulin, thereby lowering the blood glucose level. Also, the inlets are present more in the tail of pancreas. Delta cells secrete somatostatin. They inhibit the growth hormone release from the pituitary gland. So, if we discuss the pancreas, it is a gland which is surrounded by a capsule which is sending in the septas to divide the gland into lobules. It has exocrine as well as endocrine part. Exocrine part is similar to that of a salivary gland. It is staining more darkly, whereas the endocrine part is staining lightly and it is forming the inlet of Langerhans. So, it is a mixed gland which is arranged into lobules. The lobules are surrounded by a thin interlobular connective tissue septa containing blood vessels and the interlobular duct. The exocrine part is consisting of serous acini and the excretory duct. The endocrine part is made up of inlet of Langerhans, which is consisting of cluster of epithelial cells with rich network of capillaries. It is larger group of cells and they are staining pale than that of the acini. The excretory ducts directly from the individual acini are pale staining centroacinar cells that are present within the lumen of acini. They continue into the intercalated, the intralobular duct, which are lined by locuboidal epithelium, forming the intralobular duct, which are lined by simple cuboidal epithelium, and the larger duct, which are lined by the stratified type of epithelium. This slide is showing the higher magnification of pancreatic inlets, which are stained lightly than that of the surrounding alveoli. They are separated from the surrounding alveoli by a thin layer of reticular tissue, and the inlets are supplied by dense capillary plexus, thereby contributing to its endocrine part. Thank you.